In the colourful and lively village of Tambora, where drums echoed in the evenings and children played under the mango trees, lived a quiet and humble girl named Habiba. She had soft eyes, a warm smile, and a heart full of goodness. Life hadn't been kind to her, but she carried herself with grace and quiet strength. After her mother passed away when she was still a little girl, Habiba's world changed. Her father, Obokun, tried to fill the emptiness in their home by marrying another woman. But with this new woman came her son, Kanu, a boy who would make Habiba's life even harder. Kanu was the complete opposite of Habiba. Where she was humble, he was proud. Where she was gentle, he was loud and mean. Though they lived under the same roof and ate from the same pot, Kanu treated Habiba like a servant. He never called her sister, never showed her kindness. He believed he was better than her, just because his mother now ruled the house. And sadly, Obokun, their father, never noticed the pain in Habiba's eyes. Or maybe he chose to ignore it, thinking things would get better with time. Every day, while Kanu dressed in fine wrappers and marched off to village celebrations, or sat lazily under the shade trees, Habiba worked. She cleaned the compound until her hands hurt, cooked meals that Kanu would eat without a thank you, and fetched water from the stream, even in the hottest sun. She didn't have nice clothes or jewelry like other girls her age. Her feet were always dusty, and her hands rough from scrubbing floors. But despite all this, she never complained, not once. Even when Kanu mocked her, called her the house rat, or acted like she didn't exist, Habiba kept her head down and did her chores. She believed that being kind and patient was the only way to survive. The villagers saw it all, but no one said anything. Some pitied her, whispering behind closed doors about how badly she was treated, but no one dared stand up to Kanu or his mother. Habiba became known as the girl who smiled through suffering, who worked harder than anyone, but never asked for anything in return. Little did anyone know, including Kanu himself, that this same quiet girl, this nobody he mistreated, would one day rise so high that even kings would bow to her. But for now, she remained in the shadows of Tambora, hidden beneath the weight of injustice, waiting for life to turn in her favor. And when it finally did, the entire village would be forced to remember the girl they once ignored. One terrible day, the wind in Tambora felt heavier, like it carried sorrow. That morning, Habiba's father, Obokun, left for a village council meeting as usual. He had looked tired, but no one expected what was coming. In the middle of the gathering, as elders debated the upcoming harvest, Obokun suddenly clutched his chest and collapsed. Chaos followed. People rushed to his side, but it was too late. The strongest man in Habiba's life was gone. Just like that, the news spread like wildfire, and by the time it reached home, Habiba's heart sank in shock. She had lost the only person who gave her a little protection in that house. But the true storm began after the burial. Kanu, no longer restrained by the presence of their father, transformed into something even worse than before. With a twisted smirk on his face and no trace of grief in his eyes, he stood in the middle of the compound and looked at Habiba like she was filth. "This house belongs to me now. You are not welcome here," he declared coldly, his voice filled with hate. Habiba froze. She thought maybe he was angry or hurting and just lashing out, but he wasn't. He meant every word. He didn't shout, didn't argue, just spoke with a quiet cruelty that sent chills through her bones. Then, without even waiting for her to respond, he pointed to the gate and said, "Leave." Tears welled up in Habiba's eyes, but no one came to her defense, not even the neighbors. The servants her father once paid ignored her cries. Kanu's mother simply watched from the veranda, arms folded, face unmoved. Within minutes, Habiba was thrown out, barefoot, carrying nothing but the simple wrapper she wore that day. No bag, no food, no shoes, just heartbreak. She stepped onto the dusty road, the sun beating down on her head, tears mixing with the dust on her cheeks. Each step felt like 1,000 cuts. Where would she go? She had no mother, no relatives in the village, no friends who would dare cross Kanu's wrath. Children stared, some whispering, others pointing. But Habiba kept walking, head low, heart shattered. Every memory of her childhood, every corner of that compound, was behind her now, gone. She didn't know where the road would lead, but one thing was clear. She had been cast aside like trash by the only family she had left. Yet in that pain, in that moment of complete loss, something inside Habiba didn't break. It began to burn, not with anger, but with a silent fire. a whisper of strength that even she didn't fully understand yet. The world had turned its back on her, but destiny was just starting to open a new door. Habiba walked and walked, with no idea where her feet were taking her. The sun had set, and the shadows of trees stretched long across the path. Her legs trembled with each step, her throat dry, and her belly ached with hunger. Still, she kept moving, because turning back meant going to the house that no longer wanted her. Eventually, the narrow footpath led her into the forest of Kumaya, a place even grown men feared. It was thick with vines, strange sounds, and whispers of danger. Everyone in Tambora knew stories of people who entered Kumaya and never came out. But Habiba had no choice. Her body was weak, but her heart, though broken, still pushed her forward. As night fell, the forest grew darker and colder. Strange animal cries echoed in the distance. Mosquitoes buzzed around her ears. Every rustle made her flinch. Her vision blurred, her steps slowed, and then, near the edge of a small river, she collapsed. Her body hit the earth with a soft thud. Her eyes fluttered shut. No strength left, no hope. But fate had not forgotten her. Just as the forest threatened to swallow her completely, an old man named Baba Kilo happened to be walking nearby. He was no ordinary man. Baba Kilo was a healer, a herbalist, and a keeper of old wisdom. The villagers whispered that he had saved many lives, but lived deep in the forest to stay close to the spirits of the earth. That night, he was searching for a special route when he noticed something strange near the riverbank, a shape lying still among the leaves. As he came closer, he saw her, a young girl, barely breathing, her face streaked with tears and dirt, her body thin and trembling. Without wasting a moment, Baba Kilo picked her up and carried her gently through the winding trees to his small wooden hut hidden deep within the forest. He laid her on a soft mat and began his work. He boiled herbs in a clay pot, crushed leaves with a stone, and softly chanted healing words passed down through generations. He placed cool cloths on her forehead, fed her drops of special root water, and waited patiently by her side. For 2 days, Habiba drifted between sleep and silence. But on the third morning, as sunlight crept through the cracks in the hut, her eyes opened. She blinked slowly, confused. Where was she? Who was this man sitting beside her, humming softly as he stirred a pot? "You are safe, child," Baba Kilo said with a gentle smile. "The forest may be wild, but it brought you to the right place." In that moment, something inside Habiba stirred, a tiny flame of hope. She was not alone, not anymore, and perhaps, just perhaps, this forest, which everyone feared, was the very place where her true journey would begin. Living in the forest with Baba Kilo was nothing like the life Habiba had known before. It was quiet, full of lessons, and filled with the scents of herbs, earth, and wisdom. Baba Kilo treated her like a student, not a burden. He began to teach her everything he knew, from the healing roots hidden deep in the forest to the chants that calmed fevers and brought strength to the weak. Habiba listened with wide eyes, her mind absorbing every word, every motion. Her hands, once used for scrubbing floors in silence, now gently crushed leaves, stirred mixtures, and tied healing wraps with skill. She rose before the sun, helping Baba Kilo gather herbs from the deepest corners of Kumaya. She learned the secrets of bark that stopped bleeding, leaves that cured headaches, and roots that could save a dying child. Baba Kilo also taught her about the forest's balance, how every plant, every animal, even the wind, had a rhythm and a reason. As days turned into weeks, Habiba transformed. The quiet, broken girl became strong, graceful, and calm. She began to speak with confidence, walk with pride, and even laugh without fear. In the nearby villages, people began whispering about the beautiful girl in the forest who healed faster than even Baba Kilo. They came seeking her help, bringing gifts in exchange for her remedies. Habiba no longer felt small. She was growing, blooming like a flower after the rain. One golden evening, with the sun low in the sky, Habiba went to fetch water from the forest stream. Her hands worked swiftly, but her mind wandered. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. Turning quickly, she saw a young man standing by the trees, watching her curiously. He wore simple clothes, but there was something unusual about the way he stood, calm, tall, and confident. "Are you lost?" she asked politely. The man smiled. "Number just curious. I've been hearing stories about a girl who heals with her hands and speaks with the wisdom of elders. I had to see if she was real." Habiba blushed and turned back to her water pot. He stepped closer. "You carry yourself like a queen, even though you wear rags," he said softly, his eyes kind. She glanced up, unsure how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not with such respect, not with such warmth. What she didn't know was that this stranger wasn't just any traveler. His name was Ajani, the hidden prince of Banjaro, wandering the land in disguise to learn about his people before taking the throne. And the girl he had just met by the stream had unknowingly captured not just his curiosity, but his heart. Years rolled by like the gentle river near Baba Kilo's hut, and Habiba, now a grown woman, had become something of a legend. The once timid girl who entered the forest of Kumaya with nothing now stood tall as a skilled healer, known across many villages. Her heart, still gentle, beat with strength and confidence. People came from faraway lands, through thick trees and winding paths, just to sit before her and feel the warmth of her healing touch. One morning, as the forest birds sang their usual songs, Habiba stood outside the hut and looked toward the horizon. The world beyond the forest was calling. Baba Kilo, now older and slower, noticed her gaze and simply smiled. "It is time, child. You are ready." With his blessing, Habiba packed her herbal pots, roots and knowledge, and journeyed closer to Irumo Market, a busy, bustling place full of traders, colours and chatter. There, she built a small hut beside the river, simple but warm, and named it the House of Healing. From the very first week, her hut never stood empty. Mothers brought feverish children. Elders came limping with aching joints. Even market women who'd lost hope found relief in Habiba's gentle care. Her kindness, patience, and powerful herbs brought hope to the hopeless. She listened deeply, offered more than medicine. She offered peace. One afternoon, as the sun baked the rooftops of Irumo, a tall man in royal colours stepped into the healing hut. He held a scroll sealed with golden wax, the mark of the Banjaro royal family. With a bow, he spoke, "The Queen, Queen Luma, is gravely ill. The royal healers have failed. She is calling for you." The room fell silent. Habiba, calm as always, took the scroll, broke the seal, and read the message carefully. She said no dramatic words. She simply nodded, packed her bag of herbs, and prepared for the journey. 2 days later, she stood before the towering gates of the Banjaro Palace, its walls painted with gold and history. The guards stepped aside. Everyone had heard of the healer from Irumo. As she walked through the royal courtyard, whispers followed her. "Is that her? The forest girl? They say her touch is a gift from the spirits." But Habiba paid no mind. Her focus was the queen. Inside the palace chamber, Queen Luma lay pale and weak, surrounded by worried servants and silent doctors. Habiba approached gently, took the queen's hand, and placed her other palm over her chest. Then she closed her eyes. She could feel it, not just the illness, but the fear, the tension, the exhaustion. Habiba began her work, and though no one in the palace said it out loud, they could all feel it. Hope had walked in. Inside the towering walls of Banjaro's palace, silence filled the royal chambers. The air was thick with worry. Queen Luma, once strong and full of life, now lay still on her golden bed, her skin pale and her breathing weak. The palace doctors had tried everything, but her condition only worsened. Hope was slipping away. Then came Habiba. She entered the queen's room not with loud chants or flashy robes, but with quiet grace. In her hands, she held small cloth bundles filled with dried leaves, roots, and oils, gifts of the earth, passed down by Baba Kilo. Her presence alone seemed to stir something in the air. Even the servants paused, sensing that this woman was no ordinary healer. Habiba knelt beside the queen, placed a calming hand on her wrist, and listened, not just to the heartbeat, but to the silence behind it, the kind of silence that told stories of pain, fear, and long-buried emotions. Then she began her work. For 7 days, Habiba treated Queen Luma. She used warm compresses made of forest leaves, rubbed healing oil on her chest, and whispered chants taught to her in the deep forest. She gave the queen special teas that smelled like wild mint and firewood. Each day, the queen's strength returned, little by little. Her fingers stopped trembling, her eyes opened wider, her voice, once a whisper, regained its strength. The entire palace watched in awe. Word spread quickly. The forest girl is healing the queen. Even the king, who rarely showed emotion, stood silently at the door, watching this miracle unfold. On the 7th day, Queen Luma sat up in bed, smiled, and took a deep breath like someone who had been underwater too long. The room erupted in joy. Palace workers wept, The king embraced his wife with tears in his eyes. Grateful beyond words, Queen Luma summoned Habiba to the royal court. Dressed in royal robes, she stood before Habiba and said, "You saved my life. Ask for anything. Gold, jewels, servants, anything your heart desires." But Habiba, still in her simple cloth and sandals, looked up and spoke with calm grace. "All I ask, your majesty, is land, a place where I can build a home of healing, where others may come and learn the ways that saved you." The court fell silent. No one had expected such humility. Queen Luma, moved by the request, stepped down from her throne, took Habiba's hand and said, "Then the valley of Ndari shall be yours. It is a sacred place, green, fertile, and full of peace. Go, and let your healing light shine even brighter." And so, the girl once thrown out with nothing but tears in her eyes, now stood as the chosen healer of queens, gifted with her own land to plant a future that would change lives forever. In the peaceful and green valley of Ndari, Habiba began building not just a home, but a dream. With her own hands and the help of grateful villagers, she laid the first stones of what would become a grand place of hope, the house of healing and wisdom. It wasn't made of gold or jewels, but of love, care, and strength. People who once walked with pain in their hearts now worked side by side, smiling and full of purpose. Word of her kindness had spread far. People came not just for medicine, but to learn. Widows came to find peace, children came to learn about herbs, and elders came to share their stories. Everyone who entered left feeling lighter, healed not just in body, but in spirit. Habiba greeted each person the same way, with a warm smile and listening ears. Her simple robes and bare feet reminded everyone that greatness comes from the heart, not the crown. And beside her stood Prince Ajani. He was no longer the mysterious traveler in torn sandals. His royal identity had been revealed, but he chose to remain close to Habiba, not as a ruler, but as a friend. While others asked why he did not make her his queen, Ajani would simply say, "She is already a queen, in spirit, in heart, and in honor." He stood by her side, offering protection and support, but never overshadowing her light. The palace was different from any royal home. It had wide-open courtyards for storytelling, gardens filled with healing plants, and rooms for rest and learning. Habiba made sure it remained open to all, especially the poor, the lost, and the forgotten, those who once had no place to go, just like she had been. The House of Healing became more than a building. It became a symbol. Her name spread like fire in the wind. From distant lands, riders came bearing gifts. From other kingdoms, people sent letters requesting her advice. Children in villages danced and sang songs about Habiba of Ndari, the girl who turned her tears into triumph. She became a living legend. But through all the praise and attention, Habiba stayed the same. She walked barefoot through the gardens, whispered comfort to the sick, and taught the young with gentle patience. She never forgot the pain of being thrown out or the strength it took to survive. Her story reminded everyone that no matter where you start, with faith, kindness, and courage, you can build a palace from nothing. And so, in the valley of Ndari, where birds sang and flowers bloomed year-round, a humble girl became the heart of a kingdom, not with power or marriage, but with purpose. Back in Tambora, the air that once sang with Kanu's loud laughter and pride grew quiet. After Obakun's death, Kanu had believed he was untouchable. He spent every coin his father left behind without a thought. The lands that had been passed down for generations, he sold them for quick money. The house filled with memories. He filled it with parties, drinks, and strangers who praised him only when the wine flowed. He mocked the village elders, pushed away those who tried to guide him, and believed himself too powerful to fall. But arrogance is a seed that grows into destruction. One by one, the people he called friends disappeared. The ones who cheered for him when his pockets were full were the first to vanish when his money ran dry. He begged the villagers for help, but none answered. He had spat on their kindness before. Why should they care now? Soon, the house he stole from Habiba stood empty, its walls cracked, its rooms cold. Kanu was evicted for unpaid debts. No one offered him shelter. He tried sleeping outside the shrine, but even the guards turned him away. His clothes became torn, his face hollow, his pride shattered. Children pointed at him and whispered, "Isn't that the man who chased away his own sister?" Kanu wandered the paths of Tambora like a ghost. He knocked on doors, but they shut quickly. He walked past people he once mocked, now too ashamed to meet their eyes. Hunger gnawed at his belly. The same hands that once shoved Habiba out now shook with weakness. The same lips that had cursed her now begged strangers for a single coin. But no one forgot. The village did not hate him. They pitied him. For in Kanu's eyes now lived the pain of regret. He had been given everything and valued nothing. He had cast out gold and embraced sand. And now he had nothing left, not even the name he once carried with pride. His fall was complete. He, who once stood tall in fine robes, now wandered barefoot through the same dust he had made Habiba clean. The proud prince of the compound had become a shadow, and in every silent stare from a villager, in every door slammed shut, Kanu heard the echo of his own cruel words. "This house belongs to me now. You are not welcome here." Now, the world whispered it back to him. Kanu's feet were blistered and his clothes torn, but he kept walking. The whispers had reached even the dirtiest corners of the kingdom, that in the valley of Ndari stood a palace of gold and healing, led by a woman whose name stirred awe, Habiba. At first he didn't believe it. That girl he had pushed out like trash? A palace? But curiosity and hunger gnawed at him harder than his pride. He needed help. He needed hope. So he followed the whispers, step by painful step. When he arrived at the valley of Ndari, his eyes widened. Before him stood a palace unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't just beautiful, it felt alive. The golden roofs sparkled under the sun. The walls were painted with vines and flowers, and people moved about with peace and purpose. It didn't look like a place of royalty. It looked like a place of miracle. His knees trembled as he approached the main gates. The guards, tall and strong, crossed their spears to block him. But then she stepped out. Habiba. She wore flowing robes the color of sunrise. Her hair was wrapped in golden cloth, her skin glowing with health and pride. Around her stood respected healers, assistants, and even village chiefs who had come to seek her wisdom. She looked like a queen, but carried herself like someone who had never forgotten pain. Kanu's breath caught in his throat. He could hardly speak, but somehow he found the strength to drop to his knees. "Habiba," he choked, his voice cracking. "I didn't know. I was wrong. Please, help me." For a long moment she said nothing. The silence pressed on his chest heavier than a mountain. Her eyes studied him, not with hatred, but with something deeper. She remembered the cold nights, the hunger, the humiliation. She remembered the feeling of being unwanted, abandoned, but she also remembered who she had become because of it. Kanu looked smaller now, not just in body, but in spirit. Gone was the boy full of pride and sharp words. All that remained was a man hollowed by regret. The villagers and healers around her waited, watching. Would she turn away, just as he once did? But Habiba took a step forward. Her voice was calm, steady, filled with the grace of someone who had already won. "You didn't know," she said softly, "but I did. I knew who I was, even when you didn't." And just like that, without anger or pride, she nodded to a guard. "Give him food. Let him rest in the servant's hut." She turned and walked away, leaving the past behind her, while offering her betrayer a glimpse of mercy. Habiba could have turned her back on him. She had every reason to. This was the same brother who once kicked her out of their father's house, the same one who watched her walk away barefoot and crying. Now he stood before her, broken and desperate. But Habiba was not like him. She had grown, not just in knowledge and wealth, but in heart. She looked at him and saw not just the man who hurt her, but a man who had been hurt by his own pride and choices. "You may not live in this palace," she said gently, "but I will not let you starve." And with those simple words, she gave him a chance. Not a throne, not a title, but a job. Kanu became a cleaner at the House of Healing. The same hands that once pushed Habiba into the street now held a mop and bucket. He swept the very floors she had once knelt on, cleaning herbs and mixing medicine. Day after day, he watched her move with grace and wisdom, respected by chiefs, elders, and kings. And day after day, the shame in his chest grew heavier. People began to whisper, but not about Habiba's kindness. They spoke of the lesson she had become. Visitors from Tambora, Banjaro, and far beyond came not just to be healed, but to witness the woman who forgave the one who wronged her. Mothers told their children her story. Market women sang her name with pride. Even the elders of Tambora, who once ignored her suffering, now bowed when they spoke of her. And Kanu, he never lifted his head fully again, but he worked, silently, gratefully. Every floor he cleaned was a reminder. Every corner he scrubbed whispered the truth, that cruelty cannot kill destiny, that power built on pride crumbles, but power built on patience and kindness stands forever. Habiba never gloated. She never humiliated him. She didn't need to. Her life, her success, and her mercy spoke louder than revenge ever could. The story of Habiba spread like wildfire, and the world learned something unforgettable. Do not look down on those who have less than you. Do not laugh at someone because of their clothes, their pain, or their struggle, because the one you look down on today might be the one standing above you tomorrow. Habiba didn't rise because she wanted revenge. She rose because she believed in herself, even when no one else did, and that is what made her unforgettable. What an incredible journey of resilience, forgiveness, and transformation we've just witnessed through Habiba's story. From being cast out to building an empire of healing, Habiba showed us the true meaning of grace and the power of kindness. She didn't just rise from her struggles, she turned her pain into a force that healed the world around her. Her story is a reminder that no matter how low we fall, there's always the possibility of rising, stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. If Habiba's story touched your heart and made you believe in the power of grace and forgiveness, please show your support by liking this video and sharing it with your friends and family. Let's spread her message far and wide so that more people can learn from her strength and wisdom. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful and heartwarming stories that inspire, uplift, and teach valuable life lessons. Your support means the world to us, and we truly appreciate each one of you. Thank you for being part of this beautiful journey. Keep believing in yourself and never forget the power of kindness. See you in the next story.